Mr. Hassan Mahmoud, a name whispered with reverence. His presence was a comforting constant in the lives of many, a legacy etched in the hearts of countless students. His classroom was more than just a place of learning, it was a sanctuary where young minds were nurtured and dreams were born. He was a beacon of knowledge, a guiding star in the often turbulent sea of adolescence. His wisdom extended beyond textbooks, teaching life lessons that would stay with his students forever. Retired but not forgotten, Mr. Hassan remained a pillar of the community. His influence was felt far and wide as he continued to inspire and guide even in his later years. He was a man of quiet strength, known for his unwavering moral compass and sharp intellect. His thoughtful demeanor and kind heart made him a beloved figure among all who knew him. His days were filled with simple pleasures, tending to his garden, where each plant was a testament to his patience and care. Reading beneath his favorite lamp, where he would lose himself in the pages of a good book, finding solace and joy in the written word. The occasional chess match at the local park, where he engaged in friendly battles of wits, always with a smile and a twinkle in his eye. Little did he know, a storm was brewing. The peaceful life he had built was about to face an unexpected challenge. A darkness was approaching his doorstep. Unseen and uninvited, it crept closer, threatening to disrupt the tranquility he had cherished, and his life, so intricately woven with the fabric of the community, was about to be tragically cut short. The news of his passing sent ripples of sorrow through the hearts of those who had known and loved him. His absence left a void that could never be filled, but his legacy lived on in the memories and lives of his students and community members. They gathered to honor him, sharing stories of his kindness, wisdom, and the indelible mark he left on their lives. Mr. Hassan Mahmoud was more than a teacher, he was a beacon of light whose influence would be felt for generations to come. The night was still, save for the chirping of crickets. The suburban neighborhood lay in a peaceful slumber, unaware of the impending chaos. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine through the air, mingling with the cool night. The leaves rustled softly, adding to the serene atmosphere. Then, the silence was shattered. Flames erupted from the windows of Mr. Hassan's apartment, painting the night sky with an eerie orange glow. The fire spread rapidly, devouring everything in its path. Screams pierced the darkness as neighbors awoke to the terrifying sight. Panic spread like wildfire, and the once quiet street was now filled with chaos and fear. Panic seized the small community. Frantic calls were made to emergency services, each second feeling like an eternity. The air was thick with tension and dread. Neighbors watched in horror, their faces illuminated by the inferno. The heat was intense, and the crackling of the flames was deafening. They could only hope and pray for a miracle. Could Mr. Hassan escape the blaze? The question lingered in everyone's mind as they saw shadows moving within the flames. The firemen arrived, battling the fierce flames to save any trapped souls. Hope dwindled with every passing moment. The fire seemed unstoppable, and the chances of survival grew slimmer. Faces turned from hopeful to disheartened as the minutes ticked by. The fire raged, consuming everything in its path. The structure groaned under the intense heat, and the once sturdy building began to crumble. The night was filled with the sounds of destruction. When the morning light finally broke, it revealed a scene of utter devastation. The building was reduced to charred remains, and the air was thick with smoke and ash. The community stood in shock, trying to comprehend the magnitude of the disaster. And a chilling question hung heavy in the air. Was this an accident, or something far more sinister? Investigators combed through the rubble, searching for clues. The community was left to wonder and worry, haunted by the night's events. The fire marshal arrived, his face grim. The investigation began. Every inch of the charred apartment was meticulously examined. The whispers began. The fire had spread too quickly. The point of origin seemed suspicious. The word arson began to circulate, sending chills down the spines of the residents. Who would do such a thing? Mr. Hassan was a beloved member of the community. He had no enemies, no one who would wish him harm. Or so they thought. The fire marshal, a seasoned veteran, refused to rule anything out. His instincts told him this was no accident. There was something more, something darker at play. Children with their innocent eyes and unfiltered observations often notice what adults miss. and in this case their insights proved invaluable. They remembered seeing a strange man lurking near Mr. Hassan's apartment in the days leading up to the fire. He was tall, they said, with a menacing aura. He always wore a brown leather bag slung across his shoulder. Their parents, initially dismissive, began to listen. Could these children have seen something crucial, something the adults, blinded by their own assumptions, had overlooked? The pieces of the puzzle were slowly starting to come together. The fire, the mysterious stranger, the brown leather bag. A chilling picture was emerging. The police, armed with the children's descriptions, began their investigation. They scoured the neighborhood, looking for any sign of the mysterious stranger. Their efforts led them to a nearby pawn shop. The owner, a nervous man with shifty eyes, remembered a man matching the description. He had pawned a distinctive brown leather bag just days before the fire. The police obtained the bag, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Inside they found a treasure trove of evidence, a cigarette lighter with a distinct inscription, a crumpled receipt from a nearby gas station dated the day of the fire, and most chillingly, a handwritten note containing Mr. Hassan's name and address. The net was closing in. The cigarette lighter inscription led the police to Mohammed Salah, a troubled young man known for petty theft and drug abuse. This lighter, a seemingly insignificant object, became the key to unraveling a much darker story. It bore the initials MS, a clue that pointed directly to Salah, who had been on the police radar for quite some time. His fingerprints were all over it, and it was found at the scene of a heinous crime. His descent into a life of crime had been a slow and agonizing one, fueled by desperation and a growing addiction. Mohammed Salah's life had once held promise, but the allure of quick money and the numbing escape of drugs had taken over. He had started with small-time thefts, stealing from local shops and pickpocketing in crowded places. But as his addiction grew, so did his need for money, pushing him further into the criminal underworld. He had resorted to robbing the elderly, preying on their vulnerability. These were easy targets, people who couldn't fight back, and Salah took full advantage of that. He would stalk his victims, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The fear in their eyes didn't deter him, it only made him more determined. Each robbery was a means to an end, a way to get his next fix. Salah was apprehended at a local drug den. The raid was swift and decisive, with officers storming the building and catching Salah off guard. He was found in a squalid room, surrounded by drug paraphernalia. The once promising young man was now a shadow of his former self, lost in a haze of addiction and crime. He was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. The toll of his lifestyle was evident in his appearance. His clothes were dirty and torn, his face gaunt and hollow. The mugshot taken at the police station captured the essence of a man who had hit rock bottom. The brown leather bag hung limply from his shoulder, a silent testament to his crimes. Under interrogation, he confessed. The bag contained stolen items, evidence of his numerous thefts. As the detectives questioned him, Salah's facade began to crumble. He spoke of his struggles, his addiction, and the choices that had led him down this dark path. He admitted to setting fire to Mr. Hassan's apartment, a desperate attempt to cover his tracks after robbing the elderly teacher. The fire was meant to destroy evidence, but it had spiraled out of control. Flames engulfed the building and the smoke could be seen for miles. The fire department arrived too late to save the apartment, but they managed to prevent it from spreading further. He hadn't known Mr. Hassan was home. The elderly teacher had been asleep when Salah broke in. The noise woke him, and he confronted Salah, who panicked and set the fire. Mr. Hassan managed to escape with his life, but the trauma of the event left him shaken. He hadn't meant for anyone to get hurt. Salah's voice trembled as he spoke, tears welling up in his eyes. The weight of his actions bore down on him, and for the first time, he seemed to grasp the gravity of what he had done. The remorse was palpable, but it was too little, too late. His words rang hollow, a feeble attempt to justify the unjustifiable. The detectives listened, their expressions stern and unforgiving. They had heard similar stories before, tales of regret and sorrow from those who had crossed the line. But in the end, the facts remained. Mohammed Salah had committed a series of crimes, and he would have to face the consequences. The monster among us had been unmasked, and justice would be served. The news of Salah's arrest spread through the community like wildfire. Relief, tinged with sorrow, washed over the residents. Justice would be served. But it was a bittersweet victory, coming at an immeasurable cost. Mr. Hassan, their beloved teacher, their friend, was gone. His life tragically cut short by a senseless act of violence. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming. Salah was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. But the sentence, though just, brought little solace to those who had loved and lost Mr. Hassan. His absence left a gaping hole in their lives, a constant reminder of the darkness that had visited their community.